Welcome to a noob's guide to Isabella Von Carstein. This is Isabella Von Carstein, formerly Isabella Von Drac of Sylvania, which is a Dracula reference about as subtle as a cucumber down your pants on prom night. If the fangs, pointed ears, pallid complexion, and a literal cup of blood weren't enough hint, Isabella is a vampire, and a darkly beautiful and blatant play on the Baroness character trope, made famous by G.I. Joe. Cobra. Part of the Von Carstein faction, Isabella is decent in melee, provides buffs to vampire heroes, and can use spells from the lore of vampires. She's also an FLC lord for Total War Warhammer, which is an acronym meaning you're getting her for free, so don't expect anything but a cool model. Overall, she's an absolute beast, designed as a perfectly sized push-up bra wired to lift heavy weights on her own or support her husband Vlad's eternal reign of night. Well, almost eternal. 700 years before the game starts, when the Holy Roman Empire of Man was a hot mess of political strife, Isabella von Drac lived a carefree life as the human daughter and sole heir of the Mad Count of Romania. Sylvania. She was beautiful, she was rich, she had huge tracts of land, yet no Sylvanian male would touch her. Like all nobility, Isabella was raised to be vain, immoral, and selfish, but she was born with a rare disability uncommon to the gentry. She was intelligent. To fix this, she was given a classical education befitting a noblewoman, with advanced lessons in embroidery, music, and dying of childbirth before age 20 to produce a male heir. But instead of playing silly buggers, the coldly beautiful Isabella escaped to the forest to pursue falconry, hunting, and not taking lip from inbred knobs, garnering her a label as difficult and likely an earthen structure used to contain water in the Netherlands. Mad Otto refused to give the throne to local rivals and couldn't find any foreigner dim enough to claim it because, as far as most Imperials were concerned, Sylvania was 100 years behind the rest of the world. A half-empty backwater where everyone wore outdated cod pieces and gunpowder was rare enough to be considered sorcery. While actual dark magic was so endemic, Sylvania's main exports were zombies and peasants looking to move anywhere but Sylvania. Somehow it gets worse as Isabella's creepy uncle Leopold kept hinting that a local Sigmarite priest would gladly sanction their marriage so long as everyone got their hammers polished afterwards. Out of options, on his deathbed one midnight dreary, Mad Otto pondered, weak and weary, and swore his daughter would marry a demon from forgotten lore before his brother would inherit the throne forevermore. Thunder crashed, rain was tapping, and soon there came a rapacious rapping upon the castle door. A stranger in a black coach stood at the gates, demanding entry to Castle Drakenhof. He had a strange accent, possibly from Kislev, probably further, but he ordered people around as only a noble could, and thus passed the only requirement for marriage. The ceremony was performed, and the last Von Drac died immediately. Vlad von Carstein was the new Elector Count of Sylvania, and Isabella was the stunned bride of the most ferocious and formidable vampire in Warhammer. You'd think this might have caused marital strife, but Vlad showed astute husbandly acumen by just telling Isabella right off the bat about his condition. Not only was she cool with it, Isabella found it a useful quality in a spouse. The next day, her creepy uncle was thrown out of the highest tower in the castle, and all priests mysteriously disappeared from the province. Isabella still wasn't thrilled with the forced marriage, but the venture had shown that with a certain bit of clever steering, Vlad and she could make a real impact on Sylvania together. And at least he was easy on the eye. The hell? Early Warhammer lore describes Vlad as a towering dark figure of a nobleman with brooding feral charm, piercing eyes, and a mane of lustrous black hair that would make him the perfect Richard Armitage fan casting. This guy is waiting to hear back about his botched rhinoplasty special for TLC. In lore, vampires were known to pass as humans. See? Totally disguised. But Vlad here looks like he's passed through a dog's anus. And while we're on it, vampire counts in general just jumped to the grimdark shark in 8th edition. Isabella's model is insufferably horny. And if you're thinking that's just a bad paint job, nope. She goes into battle with lacy panties and thigh-high metal boots, because how else can you keep a 1,000-year-old vampire interested in you? What started out as a marriage of convenience turned into them getting along like a house on fire. The moment Isabella told Vlad to sod off instead of obeying his every whim, he was in incurably smitten. She became the only person he trusted, and when his notorious temper boiled over, the only person who could talk him out of murdering everyone in a 5-mile radius. Which is why it wasn't Vlad's charm and seduction that won Isabella over, but his earnest attempts to overcome serious anger issues and become a competent and stable leader anyway. Initially, Vlad thought of his citizens like a farmer does his livestock, annoyingly vocal uncooked meat. But after a few pointers from Isabella, for the first time in its history, the laws of Sylvania were enforced, the guilty were punished, and taxes were so low, even libertarians would balk. Of course, some noble families did resist these changes, but when they learned that swearing allegiance to the Von Carsteins made you immune to random zombie attacks and midnight disappearances, they fought each other to queue up and swear fealty. The castles of Sylvania were soon home to immortal nobles who partied all night and slept all day. The exception was Isabella herself, but he knew the true suffering of undeath and loved her too much to change her. It wasn't until she lay dying of a wasting illness that he realized he couldn't carry on without her. 3 days later, Isabella was up and about again, fully recovered, though a bit paler than most remembered. Generations later, Vlad and Isabella still ruled Sylvania, forever young and beautiful. Their peasants didn't seem to notice, as their lives were short, dirty, and diseased, and the nobility had always outlived them anyway. It's no surprise that in Total War Warhammer, Vlad and Isabella work together as a team. They have a shared ability called Undying Love, where if one reinforces the other in battle, they get 15 additional melee attack and defense. Isabella is especially able to support Vlad with her unique Blood Chalice of Bathory legendary item, which lets her restore health and vigor to an ally. I'm sure you're expecting a pimp cup joke at this point, implying Isabella subsists on a steady diet of virgin blood, Hennessy, and Red Bull, but sadly the crunk era has passed, and even Lil Jon has outgrown this joke.
People ask me all the time, where's your pimp cup? What happened to the pimp cup?
What happened to the pimp cup?
Because I was too drunk all the damn time.
Isabella's plan to reshape Sylvania using a super loyal vampire army works in the game as well. Playing as her, you can field the deadly vampire hero Doomstack, as her faction trait gives 25% more damage to all vampire heroes, with 10 extra melee defense and attack. You start with 2 vampire heroes to command, and since you can take Castle Drakenhof early, you can have 6 vampire heroes before turn 10, all of whom instill fear and terror into the enemy troops, so that some early game armies will urinate in their lederhosen and rout before they even reach your lines. All of this is thanks to the increased hero capacity from Isabella's starting traits and the unique Von Carstein building, the Mausoleum of the Mad Count, a fun nod to Isabella's demented father. The rest of her army is a mix of meat shields and chaff of your choice, as at the end of the day, or night in this case, Isabella is about vampires first, and Isabella's campaign is so much fun. Playing as her is even the preferred way to play as Vlad, as he can be recruited on turn 2, and you don't lose anything since he keeps his army vanguard deployment ability. This duo became so effective at spiking the punch bowl at their key parties that many said the Von Carsteins were more firmly in control of Sylvania than the Emperor was of the Empire, and Vlad was such a success as a ruler that maybe he should sit on the imperial throne instead, which gave them a bit of an idea, and one that ultimately led to their deaths. With their amassed vampiric host, they marched all the way to the gates of Altdorf, unopposed. Any town that surrendered along the way was left alone, and any that opposed were also left alone, in that everyone in the town was murdered and then raised as zombies so that it was now vacant. But in the end, their plan failed, and Vlad was killed in typical vampire fashion by a stake through the heart. Seeing the army crumble around her, Isabella knew Vlad was gone forever. Rather than face eternity without him, she threw herself on a stake as well, ending the only functional and supportive relationship in Warhammer history. But like Diana Ross and the Supremes, now she's back, thanks to unspecified necromancy and more than a bit of unserviced fandom. So if you hear a rapping upon your chamber door and the uncertain rustling of black curtains, have I got the goth fantasy for you to play. Isabella Von Carstein isn't the power behind the throne. She's the co-ruler that sits alongside it and shows an interest in her partner's hobbies. Become the whalebone reinforced corset that supported the greatest vampire in Warhammer. Show the world the benefit of a classical education by classily beating their backsides without spilling your Chianti. Because if there's one thing the Brits love, it's cold-hearted and aloof female leaders wearing dominatrix outfits and reminding them that they have all been very, very naughty. If you enjoyed this Noob's Guide, consider joining our Patreon to support the channel. You'll also get a chance to vote on which guide will be created next and gain the satisfaction of knowing that you only use uBlock because you find the ads annoying. As always, thanks for watching.